Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So my guest today is the go-to career coach for people on a spiritual path and the author of You're Here for a Reason. She has been through 3 career changes, having been a buyer for major retailers such as Boots, Sainsbury's and Woolworths, a business consultant for high street brands, and has run 2 small businesses. She had a light bulb moment even on a beach in Norfolk when she realized she needed to retrain as a coach. Since 2016, she has coached hundreds of clients. She believes in using life's challenges as a catalyst rather than something that takes us under. So a very, 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 very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Rebecca Kirk. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really well. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So, as I said before we hit the record button, super excited to have you on the podcast today. I'm super intrigued with your journey. Love the spirituality with career alignment, something I'm not that au fait with, but I'm definitely keen to pick your brain and become a lot more wiser around. And I love the end of that little bit of your bio. I condensed it, but I love this bit where you say, Rebecca believes in using life's challenges as a catalyst rather than something that takes us under. And I think that's a lovely trick that we can all have, or tool's probably a better word, tool that we can have to elicit ourselves in those difficult moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about perception, what we choose, how we choose to perceive life's challenges or things that could take us under. We can perceive them in a fresh way and choose to show up differently to them. There is opportunity, I believe, that lies within those challenges.
No, 100% agree. And I think it becomes almost that repetition once we fixate that actually challenge here, there's some positivity here, and it almost use that as a playbook to kind of engage something positive that we can extract from that, because it always is, but we kind of our kind of brain leans into, or our thoughts lean into sort of the negative, and it almost becomes like a habit.
Absolutely. I think being very conscious, being very aware of those thought patterns, of those habits, then you can make a different choice. I mean, there's a number of different ways that I see the opportunity within a challenge. One, which I suppose is very pertinent to me as a coach and also to some of the clients I've worked with who've then gone on to become a coach, and that is to almost transmute their challenge into something powerful that they can use to support other people with. So, for example, clients that have had a chronic illness that then went on to become a health coach. I had a client who had a very challenging domestic situation that she extricated herself from, and then went on to help other women in similar situations. And I suppose myself, having career challenges that I've had to navigate, I've been able to transmute that into the work that I do and help and support other people. So that's one of the ways I think your challenge can be your catalyst. I think also there is often an opportunity that lies within that. And I think a classic example of this is redundancy. So I come across a lot of people who are at that stage or about to be made redundant. And I think often it is a great opportunity to do something that perhaps they wouldn't always have had the courage to go on and do, to leave a job and to go into something else. So I think there is opportunity, there is an opening often that kind of gets, it's an act of grace. If we bring a sort of spiritual sense about this, I believe it's an act of grace that sometimes things happen to us, and it's how we perceive them. And then thirdly, which I suppose it's very personal also, is through life's challenges, it's certainly made me search for support, search for deeper meaning. You know, experiences such as, you know, well, the loss of my mum a few years ago, that was a very deep experience that made me really connect to my spiritual side on a whole new level.
Yeah.
You know, and my own disconnection from my life in the corporate world, it made me search for something deeper and more meaningful. And in that process, I found, you know, certain tools and ways to connect with my spiritual side that I perhaps wouldn't have done had I not been faced with those challenges. So yeah, I think there's great potential if we choose to see it like that, to transmute or to see the opportunity in what's happened.
Yeah, I love those. Well, I don't want you to go through any challenges, but I love the way that you're able to transpose those and use those difficult moments and really repurpose. So when you go deep and you have those challenging moments, what are you doing? Are you reading? Are you journaling? Or is it meditation? Is it a combination of a number of different things?
It is a combination. I do meditate. I have a daily spiritual practice, which grounds me every single day, which connects me to, I mean, I class it as the universe, but it really connects me to my higher self, to that part of me that makes sense of things on a different level that my logical mind can conceive of. So when I'm connected on that level, I understand things better, why things are perhaps challenging. You know, there are some days, you know, when it is easier to kind of get lost in the human experience. But I think having that daily practice of meditation, getting out into nature for me is hugely powerful. And I sense that presence when I'm out among the trees, among nature, among the flowers or by the sea. That's been a very powerful sort of portal, if you like, into that other dimension that helps me connect and just have this sense that everything's going to be okay, and to trust.
Yeah. So when you coach people, like I read in your bio that you've coached hundreds of people. You see, you've helped lots of people deal with difficult situations. So do different people have different things? So you referenced going out and going for walks, which I imagine is good for us all, and I'm sure we all should do more of that. Have you come across clients that have stumbled across little things that are really good for them? It might be walking, or it might be something else.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I always invite clients to sort of connect with what works for them. I put things in front of them, but I think we're all different in terms of what we tune into. So for example, some people love a guided meditation. They like the sort of comfort of somebody's voice, and some people like unguided. You know, some people find connection having a bath. Some people find it through certain sort of objects or little talisman. Certainly journaling is a very powerful tool that many clients have reported finding support through. It's almost like a sort of a paper therapist in a sense. I always invite clients to explore what works for them, but it all comes back to connection to those deeper thoughts, connection to the higher realm. That the method is almost kind of less important in a way.
Okay. And is it the finding that rhythm of whatever it is that really you connect with? As I say, you mentioned walking. Some it might be journaling. I sometimes have those. I don't journal per se. Sometimes I have those moments. I think I should be journaling more, because sometimes when I do write things down and I'm sort of sketching through things, which is kind of infrequently, but when I do it, I do have those moments where there's a sense of ease, there's a sense of clarity around whatever the focus of the pen and my thoughts are at that time. And it almost feels like something that I should be doing a lot more of.
I sense, I mean, there is an intuitive aspect to writing sometimes when we kind of almost give ourselves over to what is coming out on the page, and we learn to trust what's coming out in the page. There is an intuitive writing element here, which I think can be very powerful. But I also, which feels very counterintuitive to many people, recommend disconnection. So, I mean, the true essence of meditation really is letting go of thought. So going beyond the thinking mind. So if somebody's looking for some clarity or a solution on what to do in their career, yes, there's lots of sort of cognitive tasks and tools that we can look at, but sometimes you just need to disconnect, and there is great power in that. And I think from that point of disconnection, the little nudges, the whispers, the guidance, the universe, those messages can come through. But I don't think we're really conventionally taught to stop thinking in this way as a tool to help you get insight and creativity through. But I believe it more and more. And that's where I think going out for a walk in nature, for example, where you are fully present. So you're engaged with all of your senses, you're fully present, no devices. It can really be powerful in helping those solutions come through.
Yeah, I love this conversation, by the way. So if I can use the example of potentially going out for a walk and taking no devices and just really engage in nature and ourselves, when we have those, I don't know, maybe those moments or points of clarity, how do we go from, or should we go from having that moment where something just comes into our headspace and actually kind of makes sense, to actually actioning that situation and not forgetting it, so it kind of like doesn't sort of appear to then go away? You mentioned the moment on the beach where you had this realization. That was clearly quite profound. But I'm just thinking around people that may be listening, that maybe do we not have to be that serious? When I say serious about it, if it's going to happen, then it will happen because it's meant to happen. If it ebbs away, maybe it might come back at a later date.
Well, I think if the message is so loud that it kind of whacks you around the face, as was my experience with my light bulb moment on the beach, you can't help but action it. You feel it in every fiber of your being. I think the alternative, if it's more of a little whisper, I think it does take practice, perhaps using your journal, capturing it, you know, on paper. But I think it is a practice, and I use it. We talk about intuition a lot with my clients and building your intuitive muscle, and that can take practice. So it's one thing tuning into it, but it's another thing taking action on it. I think if you do it in small ways for kind of inconsequential events, you might get a hunch, for example, to turn down a particular street, and lo and behold, a car parking space opens up. A simple, you know, inconsequential really example. If you start to apply it more in little situations like that, and you reflect, and maybe journaling again is helpful with this, or reflect on other things that have happened when perhaps you haven't listened to your intuition and you wish you had, you start to see the patterns. It builds up the trust in the message that is coming through.
That kind of makes sense. When you're working with clients, and potentially even you may be able to use yourself as an example, do we get to a point where we become more confident about trusting our intuition and going with that moment or that thought or that intuition?
Yeah, I think over time, for sure. You know, the word trust comes in a lot here. And I think, you know, when you are on a spiritual path, you understand the connection between sort of intuition and that higher force, and what it's guiding you, either guiding you towards or maybe guiding you away from. So there is a deeper aspect to it when you're on a spiritual path, to trust it. But it can feel uncomfortable because it doesn't always make sense. In fact, quite often it doesn't make sense. You know, I can witness the sort of, it's almost a dance between the intuitive voice and the logical voice. I can be in a conversation with the client, and perhaps they're talking to me with great passion about this new career idea that they've had, that they want to pursue, and it's definitely coming from the heart space. And then in the next breath, they're talking themselves out of it, telling me the reasons why they perhaps shouldn't, which to me is the the head space, or the difference here is the higher self versus the ego self. So the ego self is the more to do with the sort of logical, thought-based, fear-based thinking mind that can talk us out of things.
Yeah.
But I think being really conscious of those conversations that are going on, then you can make a different choice.
Okay. So when you're working with clients, are you really getting them to, or in some instances, get them to kind of maybe have more awareness around the logical side of ourselves compared to maybe the more spiritual and the more intuitive side, and maybe your word that you used earlier, giving them the opportunity to trust themselves?
Yeah, I think pointing out that their thinking mind is not all they are, that there is another self, can often be quite enlightening just in that moment, to recognize these thoughts, these fears. That's not who you truly are.
Yeah.
The higher self, the essence is I believe who we all truly are. But the logical, the thinking mind can kick in once you've listened from the heart, from the higher self. And, some very famous examples of this. Einstein has a great quote around how he believed that society was, that the servant was, well, the master was the logical mind and the servant was the intuitive mind. And he believed that we'd got it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
So, to listen from here and then let the logical mind kick in. But I think just being aware that there are these two aspects. I mean, this is very sort of, there's a polarity here, it's very black and white way of looking at it, but I think it can be quite a powerful cut through for the noise and the chatter and the inner critic that often comes out in certain situations, such as looking to make a career change.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept, because if you look at, I don't know, examples of technology, well, it doesn't have to be just technology, it can be anybody that's pushed the boundaries in terms of whatever their career is. I don't know this, but it seems to me there's an element of logic has gone out the window in order for them to achieve a lot of the things that they're doing, and it can be in any career. And I think for a lot of us, I think for the masses, including myself to a degree, were sort of focused on this real logical path. And even when we face discomfort, logic kind of binds us to this path because it's kind of all that we know, and we've not probably been schooled or been taught or given the kind of the tools to kind of engage a more intuitive calling. That, but when that happens, we get that excitement, we get that sense of warmth, we get that sense of, I want to do this now, I need to do it now, I need to do more, I want more of this.
Absolutely. I think we have become disconnected from that intuitive side. I think many, many years ago, I think we were more connected, but society and changes in the world have meant we are more ruled by the logical mind. And again, it especially when working with clients that have come from the corporate world, for example, everything is based, or a lot of it is based on logic, fact, data. Certainly my experience in the retail world, you present the facts, you don't kind of do things on a hunch. And I get that to a certain degree, but I think it requires kind of wakening up this part of ourselves that I believe all of us have access to. All of us, I truly believe that. And it can make life easier. It can make making decisions an easier process.
Yeah, and it's a lovely thought that we all have access to this, and I guess it's getting to that point which you're doing with your clients, and you've gone through the process where you're helping clients engage that intuitive element or side of themselves. Can I quickly go back to your journey, where it began? I researching you, I came across the fact that your career started in the States.
Yeah, so I began on a graduate program in Palm Beach in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Just a place called the Breakers, just down the road from Mr. Trump's gaff.
Oh, really? What, Largo? Largo?
Just down the road from Mar-a-Lago.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So it was an interesting, it's my first job as a sort of 22, 23-year-old. It was crazy. An amazing experience, but I think ultimately, you know, the call to come back to the UK was too great. And again, I think an intuition was very much used as part of that process. It was quite torturous at times to get to that place of going, right, I need to move home. But I got there. But yeah, and it was a fantastic experience for a first job.
Yeah, I can imagine. And how long were you out there for?
So I was there for about 5 years.
Okay, that's a good innings.
Yeah. It was a good 5 years, and then I moved back and started my sort of corporate retail career down in London. So working for Sainsbury's initially, and then on to Woolworths, Boots.
Yeah. Okay. And that was in the retail buying space, was it?
Yeah. So I was the buyer for the greeting cards and gift wrap range at Sainsbury's, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My first.
I've been a customer, so I bought those products over the years. So yes, I'm probably one of your customers. So you got into that space, and then at some point it felt maybe a little bit sticky, that it probably wasn't your calling.
Yeah, I think it's. I made the same. I don't use the word mistake. I repeated the same patterns. So I went from one corporate retailer to another without truly addressing the root issue.
Yeah.
Which and when I was most recently working for Boots, that was my last sort of corporate role. Again, the call was too loud to ignore. And so I took a career break and headed off to Sydney in Australia for 5 months to really do a bit of soul searching. Potentially I was looking at getting another corporate job over there, but then I realized I was just literally changing the location and there was something deeper going on. So it gave me the headspace to really explore, you know, what was truly important to me. I'd become disconnected from who I was. And, you know, it was, again, I would love, you know, if everybody had the opportunity to take a career break, because it is so refreshing and enlightening. So yeah, that really changed everything for me.
And when you took your career break, did you, because sometimes people take career breaks because I just need a holiday. I just need time away from work. I'm stressed. I've just been working too hard. Did you know it wasn't that? Did you know that it was more something, there was more something fundamental going on, where I just needed to, I think you used the expression earlier, dig deep?
Yeah. I sensed that I was a bit of a square peg in a round hole.
Okay.
So the things that were motivating to a lot of my colleagues just didn't resonate with me. And so I knew that there was something else to happen here. And again, reflecting on the patterns. So it took me 2 or 3 goes to get to this point. So I knew that there was something much more fundamental I needed to address. And I was pretty sure there was something about the corporate environment that didn't sit well with me. There are some massively positive things about a corporate environment as well. I just want to sort of stress that, you know, and I benefited hugely from a lot of those things, but it just got to the point where it didn't resonate with me anymore, and it was time to do something about it.
Yeah, because potentially there are people that will listen to this that have taken a different route, where they've maybe done something maybe more independent, and maybe the corporate thing is something that is their thing, and they will make a different choice. But what I always find interesting is that when we're in a career path, and it's very going back to this logical thing again, we move from one company in the same space to the other, because it seems the more the logical place, where we've got a lot of our experience in it. It's where maybe we've got more of a bigger business network in, and it's very difficult. Maybe it isn't difficult, but it's kind of getting ourselves out of that. I think people use hamster wheel as an expression. It's almost getting ourselves off that hamster wheel, to your point, where if we can just go away and really think about it. Because I think there's thousands of people that are still on that hamster wheel, because maybe they've got family, maybe just don't have the confidence or the know-how to really take stock and really challenge the thoughts and the feelings that they're experiencing.
Absolutely. I think, the pace of life in some of those environments is so fast that there isn't time. I mean, I think there is. I mean, I work with clients who are still in corporate roles, and there are ways, I believe, that you can put some boundaries in place and bring in a little bit better work-life balance. But I think a lot of what holds people back from getting off that hamster wheel is fear. Fears around money, I think, is probably the main one. And absolutely, people who have responsibilities or family to provide for, absolutely, it's not about kind of being irresponsible and just being totally self-focused at the expense of everybody else. But I think there are certain beliefs around what can or can't happen when, let's say, you work for yourself. This idea that you might be destitute, or your income is going to just drop off a cliff. I'll be using some extreme sort of examples of beliefs there, but they are so powerful, and it's just about calling them out and seeing if they can be softened, seeing if they can be reframed in some way. So beliefs or fears around money, I think there is, in some cases, and this was my case, Paul, I think there was a status attached to the work that I did, and working for a big, well-known supermarket and brands such as Boots and Sainsbury's. I felt there was a bit of sort of kudos attached to that. And I think my ego kept me stuck in that. So that can keep us stuck. And I think fear of failure is a big one. And what people might think or say if you do, let's say you want to go off and be a gardener or a painter or whatever. Well, what's my peer group going to say? What's my family going to say? But quite often you can create quite a ripple effect by making that move. It's amazing when people do this, when clients do this, they go, oh, so-and-so was so inspired. That one person that they thought was going to be quite critical ends up championing them and applauding them, and then being inspired to make a change themselves. So I think calling these beliefs and these fears out, and you may still come back to the same conclusion that actually right now I need to stay where I am, but you're doing it in a conscious way. That's the difference.
No, I everything that you say resonates. I was thinking of a friend that I met last year who had always had a corporate career, probably for 30 years, and he'd recently changed career, maybe not even that recently, probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, he changed career, went from a corporate career where he was, unbeknown to me, deep, always stressed, to he's now a landscape gardener, and he loves it. He loves the creativity of the job. He loves the fresh air that he has. He loves the balance that he has, where he can go out, work, gets to spend time with his wife, his kids, and he's just vibe. When he was talking to me, you could 1000% feel he was energized talking to me, and generally happy.
I love hearing stories like this. And I mean, you talk about the vibes, and that's, I believe, is really key in all of this, looking at your vibration, what you give off, and when you're following your joy, I believe you emit a higher vibration, and the impact that can have on the people around you is incredible sometimes.
He certainly, most of the time. He was hugely energized. I was just like, wow, I need whatever he's drinking, I need some of that. I just wanted to ask a question around, so there will be people listening that this resonates with, and they're thinking maybe they're on that cusp of wanting to do something different. It could be at work, it might be potentially work, and they've had this intuition. But sometimes it's difficult when we've got a set of work colleagues, our family, nearest and dearest, that place us in a box where they expect us to be the person that we're kind of thinking this person needs to be tweaked because it's kind of I'm out of alignment. It doesn't feel right. So do you have any advice around how people go around engage in that situation? Do they kind of just keep it to themselves? Maybe get one or two friends that they know maybe have been through the process, or that are more sympathetic in their sort of vantage point.
Well, I certainly think having an outlet for what's going on is quite important, be that through journaling, be that talking to an understanding friend, probably great Facebook groups and things that there's outlets for it, or speaking to somebody like a coach that can truly understand and give you the reassurance that you're not alone on this journey. And that can be very powerful in and of itself. But I think also, calling out what is going on here, what is the belief here around following your own path, your own calling, away from this existing sort of definition, the way people perceive you. Spell that out if you can, this belief about what might happen, or follow that through, the what ifs of, if I choose to do something different, I believe this might happen, and then what, and then what. And it's sometimes it can sort of diminish the weight or the feeling of inertia that can initially come with that kind of thought pattern, can tail off when you really follow it through.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever we do something for the first time, invariably it's not going to be seamless. It's going to be bumpy. The road is invariably bumpy, which to me isn't a bad thing, because I think we become more engaged in the process because we learn along the way, and we become more resilient, we become more engaged. And so I guess the reason I asked the question is that for people listening, or anybody that is looking at maybe transitioning, should they have some sense of realization that it's not a seamless process, as long as you've got that feeling, that knowing, you've got that tinge of excitement whenever you think about whatever lane you want to go down, expect it to be having some sense of realism about the journey that we will be embarking on.
Yeah, I think it's good to go into these things with your eyes wide open, but at the same time, not to kind of take on board anybody else's beliefs or expectations about what might happen for you. But I think an ability to be present, so in the moment as your journey unfolds, and these are sort of practices, if you like, to practice acceptance. So we get presented with a challenge on that path, to sort of accept it and look for ways around it, and to practice trust as well, to trust in your path. I believe we all have a path that has been sort of, I say, set before us, not in a sort of that you can't do anything about it, but there is a sort of, I believe, a divine guide that's laying that path out for us. And I think when you learn to trust that, and to see the bumps along the way as just a natural part of it, I think that can affect you're talking about vibration earlier. I think that can affect your vibration. Acceptance is a powerful practice along the way.
So your journey, so you on the beach had this awakening, this realization, and tell me, if you can explain what that felt like, and then what happened next. Did you have this, like, I know what my next move's going to be?
It was a sense of clicking into place. Everything in that moment just kind of made sense for me. So it kind of came through as a sort of a message, if you like. So when I'm out by the sea, I look out onto the horizon, and I have a great connection to the universe, to that intelligence, and it's almost like we were in conversation. So it was saying something that I think when I reflect back on the things that are important to me, when I look at my bookcase, for example, and how many personal development books I've been reading my entire adult life, the things that were engaging to me in my corporate world, which was I only had a small team of 3 or 4, but that was the part of my job that I loved the most, was nurturing and supporting my little team. And so, all the sort of signs were there, but in that moment on that beach, it all kind of came together, and there was just a sense of kind of clarity that kind of came through, kind of coming through. the body almost.
Yeah. And did it, so I work with psychologists, and one of the guys, I was on a webinar, I think last year, and he said that the way that our brain works is 4 times more engaged with negative than positive. So if anything negative happens, so like we can have, I guess, 4 pieces of good information, but if we get 1 piece of bad information, it almost out trumps those 4 pieces of good information that we've had that day. So I guess the reason I sort of mention that is because I love the story, and I love that moment that you had. Did you have any fear around about what you were going to embark on, or did the excitement out trump that, or was it quite a balanced thing?
Yeah, I think the clarity and the sense of this being a calling, that gave me the courage to keep going. That's not to say that there weren't moments that weren't challenging. So when I was doing my coaching training and you're kind of going through it for the first time, your first client or the first few clients, it is scary. It is, you do have to dig deep, but I knew underneath that there was this force kind of pulling me along.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and help clients connect with, because when you're connected to that sort of that energy stream, that force, then that courage can emerge quite naturally. So I'm doing things now, maybe such as speaking to you here, Paul, that I probably wouldn't have done in my old life, in my old retail career, because I feel so much more connected to my purpose, mission, calling, that it carries me along. So I realized this is not about me. This is about me trying to get, my message out there, trying to transmute my experience to help other people. So it transcends those fears. But there are challenges. Absolutely. I think that is the human experience. But there is a guiding force.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of said it before we recorded, and I've said it since. I love what you're doing, because I definitely think, just from my own experiences personally, and also from conversations that I've maybe had with people, or even conversations I've overheard, whether it be on a bus or a tube, in a cafe, in a restaurant, where you hear people maybe talking about maybe not being totally satisfied with their work and what they're doing, and there's almost a sense of resignation that it cannot change, because it's kind of almost what I've always done. And so the fact that we do have these tools within us that we can employ to really challenge that premise, that premise of resignation, that we are destined to do something that we've done just because of the habit, that we can really challenge that, and we can really look at intuition and spirituality. So that, for me, is, I just think there's probably an epidemic of people that need to kind of think differently about where their future can be, or where it can go.
Yeah, and I think COVID made people question life a lot more. I saw a huge increase in people searching for purpose, people who were presenting as very unfulfilled. So I think, again, this idea of a challenge being a catalyst, I think that is probably one of the biggest examples recently. But I think, again, if I can just bring it down into simple terms, that is perhaps just a belief that it can't be changed.
Yeah, okay.
And as a start point is just to work on that belief that it's possible. Just that's all you need to start with. It is possible. There's an opening then.
Yeah. And it must be interesting for you as a coach when you start working with a client at the beginning, and you potentially see that the cogs in our brains thinking and exploring and stretching ourselves in terms of, maybe I could do this, or maybe that's something I hadn't considered. What's that like for you when you're working with clients and you see them going through that process?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's deeply fulfilling. That is what it's really all about, is enabling that. It's come from them. I am a sort of a conduit, a facilitator in that journey. but it is a very it's visible in terms of, well, it's a tangible thing in terms of how they talk about what's possible to them. So their language begins to change. Obviously, they're taking action towards a new career path, but their energy and what they're giving off often is very different. Get this sense that they've kind of released the shackles. They've let go of this kind of stuck, heavy energy that's been keeping them rooted. So it's multidimensional.
And that something you said around energy, because energy is so important, because when we're doing things that really don't inspire us, our energy is down here. And that affects people around us, because they, like my friend at the party, his energy was up there. So when I spoke to him at that party, my energy was, because it was just, it wasn't energy fueled by alcohol, it was just energy fueled by life. So when you're around that genuine energy, it just doesn't pick him up, it picked me up.
Yeah, absolutely. The knock-on effect of vibration is incredibly powerful. And I think, recognizing that we all vibrate, we are all energy. And, even things like we talked about at the start of this conversation, getting out into nature, things like that can raise your vibration. So again, it's working on another level, that you're raising your vibration to be more of a match to the circumstances or the higher vibration that you're looking to call in, be that a person, a job, more money, whatever that is. So the law of attraction, it will call it in. So there's lots that we can do. I think even if we feel sort of quite powerless, just some simple things to help us with that energy, that low vibration, which I know certain environments can do that to us. But I think it's trying to feel empowered that you can take some steps out of it.
Yeah, there's a quote, I forget who by, I should know who by, but I think the quote goes something along the lines of change your energy, change your life. So if our energy, when we know that our energy is good, then we know that things are going to go theoretically in the right direction. So that energy is important. Something that I listened to one of your interviews, and I've written something down. Change from doing mode, or go from doing mode into being mode. So our creativity comes from our being mode.
So this is the being mode is really the connection to what I class as the source.
Okay.
So that place of stillness where you've let go of thought. So this could be through meditation. It could be simply sat at your office desk, just being very connected within to your breath, but you're not doing, and thinking is doing. That was a revelation to me when I realized that a few years ago. But when you connect with the state of being, even if it's just for moments of the day, you connect with the true source of everything, creativity, of love, light. And that's why I think a morning practice can really help, with connecting you with that being state. And then that will empower the doing. So the doing is of higher quality and more powerful when you connected first to the being. But again, we aren't conventionally taught this. I think this is a society, and I hold my hand up here as well. I'm a big doer. I have to be very conscious during the day to pull myself back to the being state. But the focus, or the doing state is what is celebrated more, the doing state and the having state.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think there is a shift going on. I think there is more awareness, more consciousness around the being state.
Yeah.
But it's a slow ship to turn around, but I think it is happening.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. Actually, what I wanted to ask you about, which I haven't yet, is your book. So how did that come about, and what was the process like putting that together?
Well, I've always felt like I had a book in me, and I actually thought it might be a few years from now, but and this again is what I class as intuition or higher self speaking to me. And I remember about a year and a half ago, I remember one Sunday night in March, I said to my partner, I said, I've got to start my book tomorrow.
Really?
It literally came through to me. And lo and behold, the next day I drafted out the cover, I'd written out the layout of the chapters, and I began that journey, and I've kept going ever since. And
wow.
I felt extremely guided and called to do this. It's as though it's being written through me.
Yeah.
It's a culmination of my own career change journey, or the career change journeys that I've been through, and also the process that I use with clients. So okay. It's important to me, has been for a while, that I make an aspect of what I do more accessible to people, because I appreciate not everybody can invest in a coach. So this is a way that I wanted to kind of put that process out there in a more accessible form. So it's been a great journey. It's not without challenge. You have to be disciplined for sure. Yeah, I've learned a lot, but I have felt very guided in it.
Yeah, and I love the title here for a reason. I love the curiosity that elicits around exploring what we're doing. Maybe, I guess we can take notes, and we can just to really engage the process and really think about, is this me? Or if it's not, actually, I've got another opportunity over here that I hadn't even considered or even known how to tackle that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the title of the book is a direct response to the question, why am I here? Yeah. And it's an age-old universal question. This is not really a new thing. I think the search for purpose is kind of deeply imprinted into the human experience, the human psyche, needing to know why we're here. So this is my version. I mean, it may not resonate with everybody, but this is my version of how you go about finding that. And I truly believe that we are all here for a reason.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think it's an idea that I think everybody should think about as well, because I think it's easy not to. I think it's easy to kind of go with habit, what we've been doing, and what we're kind of told, we're shoehorned into. We find ourselves on a path, and even when we have that almost a knowing that we don't know, maybe we don't know that it's a knowing or it's an intuition around doing something else, we kind of don't have the tools to kind of really challenge that. And I think what you're doing, not just from your coaching, but this book will help us really become more cognizant of that and really tackle that, and maybe ask ourselves different questions that we maybe haven't even considered before.
Yeah, that's my dearest wish, my intention with the book, and I think also to open people up to a broader definition of purpose that goes beyond the purpose that's derived from our work, from our paid work. Because I think there is understandably a lot of focus on it coming from there, but I think it can put unnecessary pressure on us to find this one thing that's going to be the sort of magic bullet that solves it all. But I think there are opportunities every single day for all of us to connect with more purpose. And I think in doing that, you also you tune into a higher vibration, which will ultimately help you draw that career purpose towards you.
Yeah. And just a couple more questions around the book. What was it therapeutic for you? Silly question, but I imagine it was. But what was the process like for you, from an internal, from a perspective?
Well, it was very joyful. You know, to be able to do what you feel you're here to do, to actually get on and do that and not just be thinking about it, it was immensely joyful. And I did try to tune into this sort of energy stream every day. So I would light a candle. I would, you know, put an intention out there. So that aspect of it was very joyful. I had to really think about, you know, when you've got somebody sat in front of you, when you're coaching them through this kind of process, this journey, you know, there's certain nuances that you have to really think of when you're writing the book version of that, because somebody's can't ask you, well, what did you mean by that? So I had to really think through, you know, that aspect of it. But I think it's really focused my mind more on the topic of purpose and the end-to-end journey. And I feel it is already having a knock-on effect on my one-to-one work, which I didn't really expect.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So for people listening that are thinking, Paul hasn't asked Rebecca where they can get the book. So where's the best place for people to get the book?
So if you go onto my website, which is rebeccakirk.co.uk, there is a whole page on my book, and there's a pre-order link. So it's out on the 23rd of September. So that goes straight to the publisher website where you can order it.
Lovely.
And it will be available on Amazon as well.
Okay. Okay, fabulous. So by the time this comes out, the book will be out. So people will be able to go direct to your website and purchase and enjoy and provide feedback, which I'm sure would be amazing. Reviews,
absolutely,
will be welcome.
Yeah, all feedback's welcome. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. A question around career alignment, spirituality. If you were, I don't know, starting your career now, would you want to be aware of this stuff now? And because I'm thinking of around, we start our careers loosely around 18, 21, whatever it may be, around that time period. When should we start thinking? When should we start to think about spirituality and career alignment? Should career advisors be aware of? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think if we look at it, I'm talking on a very grand scale here. I think if we were all doing work which we're in closer alignment to, I think there would be quite a big shift going on in the world, again, just from our energy and how we show up to our work. So I think absolutely. I think, you can't always possibly know now what you're going to know in 5-10 years time. And I think one of the topics that I look at with clients and is in the book is looking at what your values are. So for example, some of the values that were important to me in my 20s, adventure, more of the social kind of side of things, which actually working in a corporate environment actually fitted me pretty well then. Even though I didn't spell my values out back then, I can see how that did suit me, whereas now very different set of values applies. But I think, I mean, obviously I advocate the spiritual approach, but I appreciate not everybody is on a spiritual path, or perhaps in this lifetime that's not for them. But I think even just the concept of intuition, if there was one aspect of what I class as spirituality that people could take to help them on that journey, is to listen more from the heart as to what the right career could be. And I mean, my typical clients are sort of in their 30s, 40s, but I would imagine, I would like to think it would help people at that sort of earlier stage, but equally understanding what your values are, your passions, your gifts. It can take a little while to emerge. And I think maybe we are meant to go on this sort of windy path in some cases to get to that point where you go, right, I'm out of alignment. Now I need to get into alignment.
Okay, lovely. And so for people that want to work with you, want to find out more about you, where's the best place for people to contact you?
Yeah, so again, my website, rebeccakirk.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay,
so
lovely.
if you just put my name into any of those in the show notes as well.
What I'll do, I get all those details, and I'll put those for everybody on the show notes. So it's super easy for people to get in contact with you and get the book and provide you feedback.
Great, awesome.
Okay. So we have a recurring question on the podcast, which is, if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they could be alive or past, who might you invite?
So I think the first one would be a guy that's inspired me a lot within my work, within my life, and that's Eckhart Tolle. So I'm intrigued as to what it would be like to be in his presence. So to be in the presence of somebody who is seemingly so enlightened, so awake, so in the present moment. So that I think would be an interesting experience, but kind of not on the sort of mental level. So he would be one. I'm a huge sports fan, so Serena Wiegmann would be probably another one who's I've found hugely inspiring this last few weeks, few months, and the way in which she's led the Lionesses to their success in such a sort of unassuming, a relatively quiet way. I just love that is a breath of fresh air. And she dedicated a recent award to the Spanish ladies team, which There's a humility to her, which I really admire. So I think it'd probably be her, and then probably somebody from the music world, probably somebody like Björk, the Icelandic musician, because she inspired me a lot over the years in terms of her creativity and her willingness to really push the boundaries. And you know, she wasn't for everybody, but she did it. And I'd like to just understand, you know, where her inspiration comes from, and how she navigated some of those challenges as well. So that would be an eclectic bunch, I think, to have dinner with.
You can't beat an eclectic bunch.
That
would be a very, very interesting dinner. A lovely dinner at that. Rebecca, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our discussion. I knew I would. I was super curious around your journey, the wonderful work you're doing, and how we can become more aligned spiritually, purposefully with our careers. And I'm a lot wiser for listening to you. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I hope it brings some value to your listeners. It's been a great conversation. Thank you, Paul.
Huge value. And hopefully we can have another conversation further on down the line.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show, so please do share this episode far and wide, particularly if you know people that are looking to gain deeper clarity around their career, and your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like, equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.